Inside the halls of San Diego State University lies a program dedicated to storytelling and pursuing the truth. Welcome to Where You At, a podcast that takes you inside the work of alumni for the School of Journalism and Media Studies at San Diego State. Our goal is to show the success of our alumni, inspire students with the stories, and connect students and alums on a pathway to journalism success. And now, here's your host, Josh Suchon.
This week on the Where You At podcast, we are talking all things fashion. We're talking about writing about fashion, marketing, public relations, community, social media. Very excited about this week's episode. Our guest is AlZaben. She attended San Diego State from 2016 through 2020. Then she attended the very prestigious Parsons School of Design, where she studied fashion in their MA program. She is a freelance fashion writer. She does public relations for some marketing and other PR-related agencies, which we will discuss. Maya, welcome to the Where You At podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Josh and Tessa.
Well, yes, Tessa, we have a co-host this week for the first time. I'm extremely excited to welcome a young lady who is currently a student at San Diego State University. She is interning for the Journalism and Media Studies Department. She is helping out with this podcast. We want to get her lots of experience. And so our co-host this week is Tessa Fenimore. Tessa, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so we're actually going to start with Tessa because Tessa came to me and said, hey, I saw this alum. Her name is Maya, and I think she'd be great for the podcast. Tessa, tell us why you wanted to learn from Maya, why you think that we should have her on the podcast.
Yeah, so I came across her LinkedIn and saw she does a lot of work in fashion, specifically fashion writing, which is something that I've always been interested in because I have a big interest. I always have had a big interest in fashion. And there's not a whole lot of career fields I thought you could go into with that besides like actually designing. And I didn't know like how possible it would be to be a fashion writer. So when I saw that she did all this stuff and was an alum from San Diego State, I really wanted to interview her and find out more about what she does.
All right, well, let's find out more about what she does. But Maya, let's begin with this. Take us through, I know that no week is the exact same, but take us through the process of what are some of the different things you do day to day, week to week with your various jobs.
Okay, so I actually took a long break from writing for like the last year and a bit because of multiple reasons. So I went to Parsons for my fashion studies master's because I love the degree I got in SDSU in journalism. We actually had a fashion journalism class. I remember I took it either my junior or senior year. I loved fashion so much that I was like, I want a degree in this. Like, I want to become the best fashion writer like ever. And I need, the proper resources to get there, which going back now, I don't think that you do need a master's to just for this, but fashion became my whole life. I had a Twitter account where I would post everything fashion history. I was writing fashion reviews on my own time. This was before I started my master's. Then I went to school 2 years, wrote an 80-page thesis, and fashion became my entire life. And that drained me. I think after the Russia-Ukraine war started and I saw a Balenciaga show, they had a show where they had runway models walking down the runway in these like coats that were thousands of dollars. And they said, oh, these are trash bags. And these are refugees walking in a snowstorm and blah, blah, blah. And that really, I think, was the last straw for me in fashion. And I was like, I don't know if I can be a part of this community. I feel really burnt out, and this isn't what I want to write about. I don't want to glamorize refugees or glamorize war. And, this was like real life and real things that people are going through. And this only benefits the 0.001% of the world. And I remember this was 2022. I told myself, I was like, the only way I can be a part of this fashion world, this fashion community, is if it's through purpose and through community and serving community, because I really see journalism as a duty to community and telling, these marginalized people that you're pretending to be on the runway, that I see you and I hear you the way you want to be seen and the way that you want to be heard. Just going about journalism in this like lens that it's a form of mutual aid and fostering connection and visibility and solidarity within community. And I wasn't getting that from the fashion industry that I knew post-COVID. And I think a lot happened in 2020 with the fashion writing community. There was a lot of, push to talk about plus sized models and fashion that we don't see anymore, the 15% pledge, and all the DEI stuff that we're seeing in the news right now that's being pushed back and pulled back, and all the journalists that, lost their jobs because of layoffs, and just the difference between 2020, 2022, and 2025, and how I almost felt like we slowly started losing community in journalism. I decided that, the way to combat that, I want to say, depression and lack of community is to form my own community. And especially this last year, I am Palestinian. So a lot of what has happened in the last year took a toll on me, and I had to step back from posting my own work because I wanted to platform other journalists on the ground. And that for me was a form of mutual aid. I made an ode to myself, and yeah, the only way I wanted to be a part of this community is if it felt like there could be a purpose. And now I just started writing again. Everything that I am writing is, again, like focused on community work instead of just, hey, like buy this or buy that. It's buy this because it was made by this person who believes in this. And yeah, I think especially with the pandemic and all of these like genocides around the world, I really started to think about how I consume media and how I consume clothing and objects. I really try to show that in my work, and the PR work that I'm doing now. I started my own PR and marketing agency, and my clients are specifically women that feel like their work is part of like a larger than life purpose. So it's not just, oh, what can I do for my community of friends? What can I do for my community like in the city? But what can I do like for the global community as a whole? And that for me is what makes journalism and writing more important than anything.
Well, I can already tell we've got some really good topics this week, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm going to turn it over to Tessa. I feel like this is going to be a half day for me because Tessa had some questions ready. So take it away, Tessa.
Okay. That was very well said, Maya. But going back to your time at SDSU, what was it that you did either on campus? You mentioned taking a fashion journalism class, or off campus internships. What was it that really helped you get experience and kind of start your career into writing for fashion and PR?
I think just really taking initiative. I had this fashion journalism class, but I realized that it wasn't enough. Yeah, I think just really taking control of my own life and just thinking like, oh, I don't have the resources here. I need to find them elsewhere. And so like I read as many fashion books like as possible. I engaged myself in the community, reached out to like, fashion editors and attended conferences, and even if they were on Zoom, just literally like, hi, I love your work as a journalist and I'd really love to know more about you and what you're doing, and just sliding in people's DMs and being like, hey, I'm a fan. Like, I think people are so afraid to be like, I love your work, you're really cool. Like, I had somebody DM me on Twitter last night and they were like, hey, can we be friends? And I was like, yeah. And just like understanding, like, especially living in a country like the US, we have an abundance of resource here, and just understanding understanding information as a communal resource, the way food or the way shelter is, really like puts things into perspective for me. And yeah, it just helps you realize like information is everywhere. And if you're not getting it from a professor or people around you, you go get it yourself. It's the way to go. There's really no excuses. And I research as a hobby. Like it's genuinely my hobby to like find like niche things and learn about things and tell people like, hey, did you know this about this? And this is really cool. And while I was in SDSU, I had my own website. It was called Fashion Politics. It's not up anymore, but that was another way that I took initiative. I gave myself homework every week, and I told myself, you need to release like an article like on this day by Thursday at 10 a.m. Gave myself my own deadlines, the way I had deadlines in school, and that really helped me. Like when I was applying to my master's, like that was one thing that like I said I did. I had my own radio show. I found these shirts yesterday. KCR at SDSU. Wasn't talking about fashion, but just yeah, I was in the Daily Aztec. I did reporting for a while. It was fun while I did it. But just yeah, I think just literally doing everything until you figure out exactly what you want to do. Like when I was at the Daily Aztec, yes, I mean I loved it, but I think in the beginning I was doing like some political writing and I was like, this isn't for me. And the only way I would know that is if I engaged with that work, right?
Yes. So kind of going off of that, you got your master's at Parsons. Was that always your dream, or is that just kind of another thing you wanted to
It was
go
always
out there?
my parents never thought that fashion was, lucrative, and they still don't. And most people I know in the industry are struggling, and that's why we're freelancing out here and starting our own businesses and agencies because it's really tough. And it's not that you're not talented enough or you're not a good writer or you're not skilled enough. It's there's just not money. There's no money there to like fuel that creativity. So that's why taking initiative is important. But yeah, my parents were always like, even with journalism, like since I was a little girl, my dad always told me like, Maya, I want you to write a book. I want you to write a book. I went to SDSU and I was undecided. I was undecided my freshman year. And then I was like, what do I want to do? I was like, I always wanted to do journalism, but I was like, no, like my siblings, I come from a very scientific family and a Middle Eastern family. Like you don't just do journalism. Like journalism is something you do in your free time. Like you're writing in your diary. Like it's not something that you can like make a career out of. So I did interior design. I realized I hated it. I'm bad with art. I'm bad with my hands. That's just not something I can do. I got carpal tunnel in both my hands. It's horrible. My art professors were mean. I was like, you're not supposed to be judging my art this way. Like, no. And then I was like, no, like I'm supposed to be doing journalism. And I loved every class. Jayla Lee was one of my favorite professors. Kay Sweetser, she was Dr. Kay Sweetser. She was in PR, but I mean, still, that was because my degree is journalism with an emphasis in public relations. My media and sexuality class, I loved it so much. And classes were easy for me. And I think when things are easy, they're easy because they're in alignment. And when they're hard, they're not. Like interior design was so hard. Like it was so hard to the point that it affected my body. So, my parents were finally on board with journalism. Okay, they were happy that I had a major. And but still, fashion was always like in the back of my mind. And again, I really had to build my own community and prove to my parents this is what I want to do and this is what I'm good at. And they finally believed in me. And Parsons was the only program that I applied to because I really believed in myself. I was like, I'm getting in. There's no way. This place is meant for me. And I set the intention that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use that degree for good and learn something out of it. And I did. And it wasn't the best experience. But again, that's where like taking initiative and doing things for yourself comes in. I definitely prefer, shout out to SDSU. I always say the best decision I've ever made was go to SDSU because one, because it's a public school, I was able to get so many different perspectives about life from so many people. That was so important for me. And even now, like I'm still in contact with so many of the people that I went to school with, and we have our own community, and everybody's always hyping each other up. And that, like, I think it's really hard to find in schools, like in art schools, like Parsons. And yeah.
So during your time at Parsons, I
Mhm.
saw you were able to go to New York Fashion Week
Yeah.
and attend it.
Yeah.
What was that experience like leading up to it, getting that opportunity to go and just all of it?
Well, let me tell you, Tessa, I made the opportunity for myself because the first fashion show I ever went to, I snuck into it. And the second one, and the third one. I took initiative. Before I moved to New York, I was in Nordstrom, the one in UTC, and there was this giant coat that I loved. I didn't know who the designer was. It was Kalina Strata. And I saw that jacket and I was like, I would love that jacket. I would love if like my dad bought it for me. And I sent him a picture of it. He surprised me with it. I go to New York. I'm like, I have like no shot of going to New York Fashion Week. I was like, well, maybe I do. My grandma just died like 3 days after I moved to New York. I was in shambles. I was a mess. But I was like, I'm in the greatest city in the world. I was keeping up with Fashion Week, obviously, especially after COVID. There's so many rules. You're still wearing masks. They're not like, okay, you can't sneak in. Sneaking in Fashion Week is like a thing people used to do in like the early 2000s. You don't hear these stories anymore. So I'm like, I remember I was in my fashion history class. It was 9 a.m. I was like, man, I really want to go to Fashion Week. Like, there's like, I'm determined. I was like, I don't have a job. I am not quote unquote cool, like in the standards of New York fashion, but I love fashion and I know so much about it. And just because I don't have these labels doesn't mean I'm not meant to be there or that I shouldn't be there. And Vogue posted an article about Fashion Week starting that day. And they started it by saying, oh, Kalina Strata, that's the designer that I got my jacket from, has a show it was like in Brooklyn. I didn't even know how to use a subway yet. I took a $40 Uber, but let me get there. Kalina Strata has a show at this place at this time. And you're not like, you don't know, if you're not invited to a show, you don't know the location. So I was like, what? The location's right there. I was like, and it was really hot. It was really hot. This was early September. This was September 6th. It was really hot in New York, and I had this big coat. I was like, do I wear it? Do I go? And I was like, yes, I'm gonna go. I actually went to this spiritual shop near my school, and I bought a little good luck jade charm. And I was like, I don't know, like it on the packaging, it said like, oh, miracles happen. So I bought it, took it with me, went home, put on this big coat, and I was like, I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna get into this fashion show. It's gonna happen. I don't care. It's gonna happen. I was listening to Just Like Magic by Ariana Grande, got an Uber because I didn't know how to use the subway, ended up in the wrong location, so I was late. Ended up at the right location. I'm like last in line, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, how are they gonna let me in? But like, it was funny because, like, for me, my mantra really, especially in New York, was fake it till you make it. Walked in to like the entrance in my big jacket. I had photographers taking pictures of me. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't know anybody in New York, but I was like, I don't care. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be here. I deserve to be here. This is a mentality that I walked in with it. So I'm still behind the line. Person next to me, I compliment her shirt. She's wearing this like gorgeous shirt, and I was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna like talk to her. She has a cool shirt, and I'm gonna tell her. I really believe in like if you like something that someone's doing, just freaking tell them. Just tell them. So I compliment her shirt, and then we end up talking about like masks and her shirt, and we just like have a full blown conversation. And she's like, "Oh, like who do you write for?" Like, what? And I was like, "Oh, like I'm just a student. Like whatever. We're bonding. We're talking about astrology because that's I've been studying astrology for 6 years, and Tessa, I don't know if you saw some of the articles I wrote for Fashionista, but I incorporate astrology with fashion, and that's like a whole other thing that I do." I asked her what she does, and she was an editor at Vogue. Now she's the beauty editor at Vogue. And we really connected, and we get to the front of the line, and they're like, just let everybody in. And she said that I was with her. She was like, oh, she's with me. I'll never forget. I'll never forget like how that made me feel. And that was her name is Arden Fanning. And she was the first person that made me feel really welcome in New York. And again, this was like 2 days after my grandma died. And I felt like she was like, she guided me there and she guided Arden to me. And that was my first fashion show. I had like my little camera. I was so excited to be there. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Colina Strada is not an easy show to get into in New York, also. It's tough. And till this day, like Arden has really like left a mark on me. And she actually, I remember like not like a week later, I was in the Uniqlo fitting room. I was buying new clothes because I was like, oh, winter's coming. Like I need, heavy clothes. We didn't need that in San Diego. And she was like, check out this article. And she like mentioned me in an article she was writing. And that for me is just community. She believed in me. She didn't know me, but she still believed in me. And I think all you need is one person to believe in you. And that whole week, I spent the entire week just going to fashion shows, figuring out the location and being like, I belong here. I belong here. There was, I think, one show, it was Prabal Gurung. I watched it from outside, but I still dressed up and I still went. There was a show, who was it? Why am I blanking? Oh, Laquan Smith had the first ever fashion show at the Empire State Building. Knew I couldn't get in, but I waited outside. I was just like, I just want to be here. And I remember I was standing next to these two parents, and their daughter was actually working the fashion show. And they're like, we're just proud of her and we're just outside. And I was like, cool, let's hang out here until the fashion show ends. And yeah, so I think fashion is really all about taking initiative and just doing things that other people are not doing.
I
Yeah.
wanted to jump in real fast just to say that I am a big believer that flattery will get you everywhere in life. And so complimenting people, saying that I'm a fan, whether that's in person, whether that's a shirt that you're talking to, whether you DM someone on Twitter and say, hey, I want to be friends.
Yeah.
And I love the story so much. And I hope that you pay it forward, Maya, with someone when you get to that opportunity, whether that's today or tomorrow or whenever. And with that, Tessa, on to your next question.
Just quickly, I have never like denied like anybody that has reached out to me about anything, like the smallest thing. I'm like, yes, like I'll help you. Like let's hop on a call, let's hop on a Zoom. Yes, I'll edit this, I'll read this, I'll write this, because I always think like that's what, like 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old Maya would have wanted and still wants. That's again, that's the community. That's the mutual aid that comes with being in the space of journalism and writing.
All right. So you briefly mentioned how you study astrology,
Mhm.
and you have a feature in Vogue titled The Answers in the Stars,
Yeah.
where you mention this and kind of talk about how you take astrology and kind of mix it into fashion. I just want to know more about that and how you kind of incorporate that into your everyday work.
Yeah. So I started studying astrology in 2020 because I graduated from SDSU in 2020. It's pandemic, and I'm a learner for life. I love learning more than anything. So, like 2020, when like my senior year, we only had like I think the capstone class and then another class. We were like stuck at home, and I was like, I need to learn something. I need to take something up. And it became astrology. I had an amazing teacher. I took 1 to 2 classes a week with him. His name is Chad the Maverick. I was, studying it academically, and I fell in love with it, and I was applying it to everywhere. And I actually come from a lineage of mediums and a very spiritual family. And everybody in my family is, psychic in their own way. But I will say I believe that astrology isn't even like part of the occult, but it's a way to recognize patterns. It's a tool for pattern recognition. And that's how I saw it. And I suck at math, but I'm great as astrology. And it became very natural for me. And then I'll never forget one day, 2020, I was in my room. I was thinking, I was like, everything has its own birth chart. Like this episode right now has its own birth chart. Like everything has a birth time. Everything is born at a certain time. And the stars are aligned differently for every event. So I was thinking, how can I incorporate astrology and fashion? And I started looking at the time that a model was on a runway and analyzing charts of brands, of designers through that. And one day, the editor-in-chief of Fashionista, this was in 2022, after I was posting all of my stuff on Twitter. My Twitter that I was using was deactivated because, again, I went through burnout, deactivated, forgot to reactivate, and I guess Elon Musk decided to delete the account, which is really sucky because I had like over 10,000 followers. So all of my astrology work was on there, and then I slowly moved some of it on Instagram. So she had posted looking for a Virgo to talk about astrology, like a Virgo astrologer. And I was like, what? My friend had sent that to me. I was like, this post was literally made for me. I sent it to myself. It was crazy. And so I reached out to her and she asked me to write an article on Virgos in fashion. And that's when I started writing astrology fashion articles. But also, I had to take a step back from that because I realized that I was being typecasted the way, you know, actors are in movies. And when you're writing too much about a certain, you know, subject, that's what people want you to write about, and that's what you become known for. And I didn't want that to happen to me. So most of my astrology work now is in my inner circles and research based. And see, the thing with astrology and writing about it is it's a very complex study, and it's very hard to dumb it down. It's very, very hard. So that was just something that I was also struggling with. How I incorporate it though is like, for example, I'm working with a musician right now, and I picked the date for her to release her next single because we looked at the best astrology for certain dates, and there was a date that came up, and I was like, that's the date. So that's like how just I think yeah, that's really how I incorporate it. Like, oh, let's look at your chart as a business plan and see the best times to do things, the best way to make money, the best, like, there's so many things that you can use astrology for.
Throughout all your answers, you've kind of been mentioning how the industry is ever changing in fashion and whether that kind of like aligns with your beliefs or not. So today, and kind of with the work you do today, how do you stay updated on kind of current trends and events going on in fashion? And kind of like what medium do you use? Where do you get your information?
Right now, for fashion stuff, definitely Instagram. And I think it's almost bittersweet because Instagram definitely changed the way that we view journalism and what journalism is. And especially in fashion, critique has definitely been lost because people are afraid to speak their truth, because speaking your truth means you're not going to get a PR package. You're not going to get invited to a show. Blah, blah, blah is not going to talk to you anymore. But yeah, most of my fashion news is from Instagram. I like to use Twitter. I made a new Twitter because I think the takes are more critical and analytical there. But I think ever since Elon Musk said, "Oh, if you're verified and you can get money off Twitter," the scope of fashion journalism on Twitter has changed because people are trying to make money. So again, there are less critiques on there. I think the idea of sponsorships on social media really changed the game. I also have a great network of, you know, fashion editor friends and writers, and you know, we're all talking privately in our group chats about how we feel about ABC. Substack. I'm coming out with a Substack soon. That's another, I think, very important medium that I'm so glad to see take off right now, because I think people feel like it's a safe space to just talk.
I'm going to jump in here. First of all, I'm going to highly recommend Substack as well, since I write for Substack, not just because I do, but I actually really enjoyed a wide variety of different authors' essays that I've read. But I want to follow up about critique. It was actually a question that I had that I wanted to mix in, because I noticed for myself, I remember, okay, so I'm much older than you two. I remember in the 80s and 90s when I would read music critiques, more times than not, it would be negative toward artists. I remember Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses, and they were like calling out the writer from Circus Magazine during one of like the songs. It was like one of the original diss tracks, but it was toward a music critic. And now I think that whenever I read music critiques, it's overwhelmingly positive because, like you said, Maya, you don't want to lose access, right? And it's very much being a fanboy or a fangirl. And so how do you balance, Maya, the idea of being true with what you believe you're seeing, but also not wanting to alienate this industry and lose access?
You literally can't give a bleep. Like, you just have to, like, that's just what journalism needs. Just say what you need to say, and if you're losing something, then it's not meant for you. And you know, I think more people need to be brave and protect journalism and keep their integrity. And actually going back to your point about, music critics and in the 80s and 90s. So I'm actually, I have an article coming out on punk and protest. And something that I really noticed was the way that punks were writing in magazines like, I think, Punk Planet. And, the writing was very, very aggressive and, inappropriate. And I realized that, the way these punks were dressing really mirrored their language style and vice versa. And yeah, it was just part of this counterculture of writing and journalism that took place in the 80s and 90s, I think, because of the punk era. So yeah, I think definitely a connect between the political landscape and writing styles and critique. Like I think now being on Twitter, especially, or just seeing the way people are talking in the news or Trump's administration, I think a lot of things now that weren't normalized in like 2020 are certain words and things that should be censored that aren't. I think because we're in a political landscape that is more aggressive. So I think we're also seeing that in writing and the way that people are speaking.
So kind of like considering that change in the political landscape and just the way of everything, what does the future of kind of like fashion writing, magazine writing, all of that, what does it look like just from your perspective?
More independent for sure. I think people are realizing that, I think the same realization that I had 2 years ago, there's more to life than pretty clothes. We can use pretty clothes to make statements that are larger than we are, but I think the world is becoming more community driven and understanding that. And fashion, I think people in fashion right now are realizing the way to go is to be independent. I think more people are happy to be freelancing and, find an income in other ways than just wait around and be censored by an editor and, wait to be laid off and cater to, again, that 0.001%. That's where I see the future of fashion going towards. I think there's more to be mad about in fashion than proud about. And that's, the way that, again, going back to like plus size models are talked about and how, skinny is back, or the state of the world, protest clothing and what that means from like a broader perspective.
I'm going to jump in with at least two more questions before we wrap things up. My first one, Maya, is what is your advice for Tessa or other students similar to Tessa who are hearing your words, understand your story, knowing what you know now? What are the types of things that Tessa should be doing in school, other students like her should be doing in school as they try to make their mark in whatever type of fashion work it is?
Realize that community isn't just people in front of you. Find your own community. There are other people like you, and reach out to people that you think are cool. Reach out to people that you want to become. Like, oh, I want to be like this writer in 20 years. Reach out to them. Send them an email. Taking initiative. That's the most important thing. And if you can't find your community, make your own. I think that's the best advice I can give you. And also read as much as you can and watch as much film as you can. That was advice that I had gotten a few years ago from another fashion writer. And, nothing helps more than just knowing how to make references, metaphors, engaging in different writing styles, languages, seeing how other people are engaging in specific topics and conversations, and emulating that, I think, in your own way.
I also want to know more about your agency. Tell us about how you get clients for your agency. And if people want to find out more, maybe collaborate with you, let us know how we can get in touch with you or how someone can get in touch with you based on what you do with your agency.
So my agency it's called the Mayaverse marketing and PR. And it really is this like, so the Mayaverse is this kind of personal brand that I invented for myself a few years ago, because I kind of just turned myself into this brand of fun. And I turned my writing style and my research into this brand that became me. And it's really this like world of like innovation and like fun and just anything really obscure and niche and focused on, again, community building and women. And my mission really with this agency is to like elevate especially divine women who see their work as part of their life's purpose, and incorporating astrology and self-work and divinity as these unique guiding tools in this agency, and just kind of taking a holistic approach towards storytelling and advertisement, I guess, and PR.
Tessa, any other questions that you have for Maya before we wrap things up with this week's episode?
I think I kind of went through all my questions.
Okay, one of the things we like to do whenever we wrap things up on the Where You At podcast is to brag about other San Diego State alums who are making us proud. You mentioned earlier, Maya, that you have a community of friends from college and you stay in touch, you hype each other up. It can be them, it can be anybody. Who do you want to brag about who's making us proud, who's an asset?
I'm gonna brag about two people, Sydney Northcutt and Aaliyah Alexander. And so Aaliyah works at a PR agency in New York City. I think she recently moved a few years ago. And Sydney Northcutt works in LA. She's in sports journalism, and everything that she does she just blows me away. Like, the way she takes up space in a male-dominated field amazes me.
Excellent. We like it a lot. Any other things that we did not ask you? I'd like to finish with this, that we should have asked you. Just anything else about this conversation. It can be advice. It can be wisdom. It can just be anything else about your background that is germane to this conversation.
I think, and this is something that I've been thinking about the last few weeks, but also the best advice that I can give to myself, I think I want to say, and to other journalists like Tessa, is to just do things. Things don't have to like be complete or perfect, or you don't even need to have a strategy. Just start somewhere and just do it. Inspired action. Just do it.
Start your own website. Give yourself homework assignments. Give yourself deadlines, right?
It doesn't even need to be a website. Just start writing somewhere. Just something.
All right, Maya. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all of the best. Keep us updated with everything you're doing.
So also, if you want to like connect privately and like talk privately, I'm available, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on.
Of course. This is an amazing podcast. I'm so excited that you guys are doing this. And yeah, if you guys have any other questions, if you want me to recommend anyone else to come up, I hope you guys end up reaching out to at least Sydney and Aaliyah. I think they'd be great.
For Tessa Finamore, current student, I'm Josh Suchon. You just heard from Maya AlZaben. This is the Where You At podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Where You At podcast. This is Devin Watley from the class of 2021. Thanks to Martine Marine for creating the music you're hearing right now, and Alex Piscatelli for her work on the podcast name and artwork on social media. And a reminder to SDSU alums, we really want to know where you're at. Tell us about your career. Get involved in the school. There's many ways you can do this, from donating your time or money, mentoring students, to even speaking in classrooms, in person, or on Zoom. Your work can help us grow the program and create more opportunities for our students to succeed. Again, thanks for listening. Subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Recommend us a future guest. And go Aztecs.